The morning light filtered through the large window of my gallery, illuminating the canvases that were carefully arranged around the space. Each one told a story, reflecting a part of me, my emotions and experiences. I was there, surrounded by my art, but what dominated my mind wasn't the work ahead of me, but Jake. The touch of his hands, the way his eyes sparkled when we talked about our dreams, all of it made me feel alive, but it also left me vulnerable. I walked over to the canvas I had painted the week before, an abstract portrait of a sky ablaze at sunset. The brushstrokes were impetuous, almost like how I felt about Jake. I loved that man, but the uncertainty of how he truly felt about me was beginning to erode the trust one had built between us. I remembered the last time we were together, his arms wrapping around me as we danced slowly to a soft song. "You mean everything to me, he had said, looking into my eyes. How could I doubt him? But something told me it was more complicated than it seemed. At that moment, my phone vibrated on the table, interrupting my thoughts. It was a message from Sarah, my best friend. "How's the exhibition? Remember, you're an amazing artist." I smiled as I read her words. Sarah always knew how to lift me up, but today insecurity was consuming me. What was Jake doing right now? Was he thinking of me? I felt a knot in my stomach, imagining the worst. I decided I needed a distraction and walked over to the central table where my painting materials were. As I organized the paints, I heard the gallery door open. The sound of the bell announced someone's arrival. I turned, and my heart raced as I saw Jake walk in. He looked stunning as always, with that charming smile and carefree demeanor that made my world feel lighter. He was holding a small bouquet of wildflowers, and the sight filled me with a mix of joy and anxiety. "Hey, love," he exclaimed, approaching me. "I brought this for you." Extending the flowers in my direction, he watched me with an expression that blended sweetness with a touch of mischief. "You know I love flowers, but you didn't have to," I replied, trying to hide the emotion building in my chest. "I know, but I wanted to. You deserve it." He stepped closer, and before I could protest, he pulled me in, wrapping me in his arms. His scent, a mix of cologne and a hint of coffee, enveloped me instantly. I wanted to lose myself in that embrace, forget my insecurities, but a shadow of doubt crossed my mind. "How was your morning?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I stepped back slightly to look into his eyes. There was something different in them, a slight restlessness I couldn't ignore. "Oh, you know, the usual rush. Projects, meetings, but I'm here now." He looked at me with that intensity that always made me melt, and I couldn't resist. Our lips met in a soft, yet passionate kiss, as if the world around us had vanished. That touch, that warmth, was all I needed. When we pulled away, Jake was smiling, but I couldn't shake off the shadow of insecurity that still lingered over me. "You have a way of leaving me speechless," I said, trying to shift the focus. "And you have a way of inspiring me. Your works are incredible. Each one makes me see the world differently." He looked around the gallery, admiring the paintings. "This one is new, isn't it?" He approached the canvas I had painted recently. "Yeah, I finished it last week. What do you think?" I asked, anxious for his opinion. "It's stunning. The way you captured the light. It's like I can feel the warmth of the sun." He turned to me, his eyes shining. "You truly have a gift." I felt warmed by his words. However, as we talked, a part of me couldn't shake off the doubt that was starting to settle in the back of my mind. Why couldn't I relax completely? Why were the whispers of insecurity not leaving me in peace? "Jake," I hesitated, trying to formulate the question that was tormenting me. "You've been busy lately?" He hesitated for a moment, and that brief pause sent a chill through me. "Yeah, a lot of work, you know. But I'm here now. That's what matters, right?" He smiled, but there was a slight tension in his voice. Of course, of course. I was just thinking about how intense things have been. What I really wanted to know was if there was something more behind that intensity. I just want to know that you're, well, you know. I'm great, Em. I just need a bit of time to focus on work. That doesn't change how I feel about you. He stepped closer again, holding my face between his hands. You're the only one that matters. I wanted to believe him. I wanted those words to be enough to dissipate my doubts, but the insecurity was still there, like a constant shadow. The light atmosphere we had shared began to feel heavy, and I knew I needed to do something to push that feeling away. After Jake left, the gallery fell silent. I looked at my phone, hoping maybe a message from Sarah had come through, but what I found was something very different. An anonymous notification. My heart raced, and I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity won. Upon opening the message, I felt my world collapse. It was an insinuation, an accusation that Jake might be cheating on me. The words spun in my mind, and a chill ran down my spine. How could I ignore this? A whirlwind of emotions took over me: despair, anger, pain. I didn't want to believe it, but the doubt was there, planted like a seed starting to germinate. I tried to distract myself, focusing on the displayed works, but it was as if Jake's touch was still alive in me, contrasting with the dark image that was now beginning to form. I looked at the canvas I had painted with so much care, and I realized I could no longer see its beauty. All I could think about was what might be happening in the shadows of our relationship. I took a deep breath, trying to regain control. I couldn't let an anonymous message ruin everything we had built. Jake might have his flaws, we all do, but I needed more than a rumor to destroy the trust that existed between us. With that determination, I set my phone aside, but the truth is that as the light of the gallery shone, the darkness of doubt began to seep into my heart, and I knew that the battle between love and insecurity was just beginning. When I decided to confront Jake about my insecurities, my heart was in turmoil. I knew I needed to be honest with myself and with him, but that didn't make the task any easier. I spent the entire afternoon mentally preparing, reliving every moment that brought us here, every smile, every touch. I stood in front of the mirror, fixing my hair, trying to find the courage that seemed to have dissipated over the days. Finally, I took a deep breath and left the house, the words forming in my mind like a mantra. I need to know the truth. When I arrived at Jake's apartment, the door was slightly ajar. He had always been disorganized, but there was something comforting about the mess of his life. Looking around, I saw the cameras tossed in the corner, clothes strewn about, and on the table, a photography book he had mentioned. I felt a pang of nostalgia, but also the pressure of what I needed to do. Jake was in the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee lingering in the air. He turned when he heard the door close, and a smile lit up his face. "Hey, you look beautiful," he said, with that voice that always melted me. "Thanks," I replied, trying to keep a normal tone, but my voice came out more tense than I expected. "Do you want some coffee?" he asked, walking towards me. The way he approached, as if he wanted to wrap me in his arms, made my heart race. But I knew I couldn't let myself get carried away by the moment. "Actually, Jake, we need to talk," I said, resolute. He stopped, the expression on his face shifting from warm to worried. "About what?" I sat on the couch, and he joined me, the tension already present in the air. I received a message. Anonymous. And it was about you. His eyes narrowed. "About me? What did it say?" "That you might be cheating on me," I murmured, each word weighing like lead. "Emily." He sighed, and I realized he was trying to stay calm, but there was a tension in his body that made me feel like he might be hiding something. "I would never do that to you. I love you." I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. The love he professed was real, But what about the doubts? The insecurities? But I don't know, Jake. I feel like something is different. Sometimes you seem so distant. I understand that you're feeling this way, but I'm here. My heart is yours, and I just want you, he said, holding my hand. His touch was familiar, but the warmth that once comforted me now felt like a distant memory. I want to believe you, I replied, looking into his eyes. But how can I do that if I feel like you're pulling away? I promise, Emily. We'll spend more time together. I'll do whatever it takes for you to feel secure, he said, his voice laden with sincerity. I just don't want to live like this, afraid of what might be happening. I confessed, feeling tears threaten to spill. There's nothing to fear, I swear. We'll get through this together. I don't want anything to come between us, he said, pulling me into a tight embrace. The warmth of his body against mine brought me some comfort, but still, the doubt lingered, like a shadow that wouldn't fade. Later that night, we went to a party organized by friends. The atmosphere was vibrant, music playing and laughter echoing. Jake was by my side, and for a moment, I managed to forget my insecurities. We danced and had fun, but in a corner of the room, something caught my attention. An unknown woman was approaching Jake. She was beautiful, with dark hair that shone under the lights. They started talking, and the way Jake looked at her made my stomach twist. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't look away. They seemed so at ease, laughing and leaning into each other. Emily, are you okay? Sarah, a close friend, asked, noticing my expression. I'm just checking things out, I said, trying to sound indifferent. But the truth was, I couldn't focus on anything else. The knot in my throat grew, and the urge to distance myself from the scene was almost unbearable. Sorry, I need some air, I murmured, abruptly turning and leaving the party. When I got home, loneliness wrapped around me like a heavy cloak. The darkness of my apartment seemed to reflect the confusion within me. I tried to distract myself, but my mind was in an endless loop of questions and fears. Why was Jake so close to that woman? What was between them? I lay in bed, but sleep wouldn't come. I closed my eyes, trying to push away my thoughts, but instead, the memory of Jake's touch flooded my mind. I remembered how his fingers glided over my skin, how his embrace made me feel alive. The desire to feel that again was overwhelming, but the thought of him possibly being with someone else was eating me alive. Why are you doing this to me, Jake? I whispered to the ceiling, as if he could hear my words. The pain of betrayal was a shadow that wouldn't let me be, and I didn't know how to deal with it. The night dragged on, and the hours passed slowly. My mind was a whirlwind, and desperation began to set in. I wanted to trust Jake, but every laugh, every glance I imagined between him and that woman made me feel like I was losing something precious. The touch that once gave me life was now becoming a bitter memory. I got out of bed and walked to the window, looking at the city lights outside. New York was alive, pulsating with energy, and I felt so small and insignificant. I needed answers, clarity, but how could I find them when every time I looked at Jake, doubt invaded me like poison? I can't live like this, I murmured to myself, feeling the fragility of my heart. I need to know the truth. The decision to confront him again formed in my mind. I couldn't continue living with this weight. I needed closure, certainty. And regardless of what I discovered, I knew I had to be strong enough to face the reality, whatever it was. The sunlight filtered through the windows of the cafe where I was sitting, the golden rays dancing on the worn wooden table. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, bringing a sense of comfort that contrasted with the emotional storm I was facing. Sarah, my best friend, was sitting across from me, her attentive and worried eyes waiting for me to open up. You need to tell me what's going on, she said, leaning forward, her light brown hair falling gently over her shoulders. "I've never seen you like this." I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. "It's Jake." "I'm so confused, Sarah. I feel like I don't know, he's changed." And I found a strange message on my phone, something that hinted he might be cheating on me. Sarah's eyes widened. "Emily, this is serious. Are you sure? Did you talk to him about it?" "I did, but he reassured me, said he loves me. But the feeling won't leave my head. Last night, I saw him talking to a woman at the party. They looked so close." My words came out as a whisper, the pain manifesting in my voice. Sarah furrowed her brow, deep in thought. "Maybe you should investigate more. I'm not saying you should make a scene or anything like that, but you need to know the truth before making any drastic decisions. You love Jake, and that's not something you should dismiss without being sure first." "Investigate? What do you mean?" I questioned, a mix of intrigue and fear taking over me. "Be discreet. Observe what he does, who he meets. You don't need to confront him right away. First, gather some evidence." My heart raced at the thought. I didn't want to become a spy, but the uncertainty was consuming me. "Maybe you're right. I need to know the truth." The conversation flowed to other topics, but my mind remained fixated on Jake. Knowing he might not be who I thought, desperation turned into a kind of motivation. As the coffee cooled, I decided that the next day would be the day I would follow Jake. The next morning arrived with a cloudy sky, reflecting my state of mind. With a mix of anxiety and determination, I dressed casually and grabbed my phone. As I stepped out of the house, my heart raced, almost as if I were about to face a tribunal. The day was rainy, but that wouldn't stop my quest for answers. Hours dragged on until I finally caught sight of Jake. He was leaving his house, his camera hanging around his neck, dressed casually but attractively as always. A desperate impulse made me follow him at a safe distance. My heart pounded in a frantic rhythm. Each step I took brought me closer to the truth, but also to a possible heartbreak. Jake walked through the streets of New York, stopping here and there to take photos. He seemed so focused, so passionate about his art. As I watched, a wave of nostalgia hit me. I remembered the afternoons we spent together, sharing laughter and dreams. But the pain of betrayal I feared pushed me forward, like an irresistible magnet. After a while, he entered a hotel. The world around me seemed to stop. My heart sank in my stomach, and a wave of despair washed over me. What was he doing there? What did it mean? I wasn't sure if it was courage or madness that brought me here, but the truth was that I needed to know. My phone vibrated in my pocket, but I couldn't answer it. The only thing I could do was stand there, watching the hotel entrance. People came and went, but Jake seemed to linger inside. Time dragged on, and every second felt like an eternity. Finally, after what seemed like forever, I saw a woman approaching the entrance. She was tall, with dark hair and a red dress that seemed to shimmer under the city lights. My heart raced. No, it couldn't be. Jake appeared at the door, and my world crumbled. He smiled at the woman, and that smile, which had always been mine alone, now seemed so easy and natural. The woman leaned against him, and in a gesture that made me feel like I was being torn in half, Jake pulled her closer. An embrace. A touch. The image burned itself into my mind like an open wound. Desperate, I backed away, tears streaming down my face. Not knowing what to do, I grabbed my phone and searched for Sarah. The ringing echoed in my head, and when she answered, her voice sounded distant. "Emily, what happened?" "Sarah, I saw Jake. He's with a woman. He wasn't just working. I don't know what to do." My voice trembled, and the pain was almost unbearable. "Calm down, Em. Breathe. Are you sure about what you saw?" "Yes, I saw. They were hugging. He looked so happy. My words came out as a whisper, the pain transforming into despair. Wait, please. Before you act, make sure of what's happening. Don't do anything rash. We need more information. But what if it's true? What if he's cheating on me? I can't bear the thought, Sarah. Fear and sadness dominated my voice, and I felt like I was on the verge of collapsing. Emily, listen. You need to take a step back and think clearly. Don't do anything until you know what's happening. What you saw might not be what it seems. Wait a little longer, please. The call ended, but my mind remained restless. The truth I so desperately sought now seemed like a burden too heavy to bear. Tears streamed down my face, but I knew I needed the clarity that Sarah mentioned. What I witnessed could be just a fraction of the truth, and I didn't want to be hasty in my decisions. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. The idea of waiting felt torturous, but maybe it was what I needed. I tried to focus on Sarah's words. One day at a time, one step at a time, and above all, the truth would be revealed in due time. The aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air as I set the dinner table. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls of my small kitchen in New York. My heart raced. This was my chance to clarify everything. I needed to confront Jake. The insecurity that consumed me could no longer be ignored. The background music played softly, but I could hardly pay attention. My thoughts swirled around the anonymous message, the hotel, the woman he had talked to at the party. I didn't want to believe he could betray me, but doubt was lodging itself in my chest like a sharp pain. When my phone vibrated, I nearly dropped my fork. It was Jake, letting me know he was on his way. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil within me. The table was set perfectly, with dishes I had carefully chosen, and the wine he loved was already in the glass, waiting for us. I wanted the evening to be perfect, but the weight of uncertainty followed me like a shadow. Hi, my love. Jake walked through the door with a radiant smile and a bouquet of fresh flowers in his hands. He always had a way of lighting up the room, but looking at him, I felt a knot in my throat. Hi, Jake. How beautiful. I thanked him, trying to force a smile. I prepared a surprise for us, he said, placing the flowers in a vase on the table. But I don't want to ruin yours. What did you make for us tonight? Oh, just a simple dinner, I replied, but the word simple sounded bitter on my lips. It was anything but simple. It was a carefully crafted trap for me to discover the truth. We sat at the table, and the atmosphere was tense. We talked about trivialities, about the upcoming exhibition, but I couldn't shake the need to ask. The wine glass was half full, but I couldn't enjoy it. Jake seemed lost in his thoughts, and I wondered if he was hiding something. You seem different tonight, he remarked, glancing over at me. Is everything okay? Yeah, of course. Just thinking about some things, I replied hesitantly. He took my hand, and the warmth of his touch reminded me of all the moments I felt safe by his side. But at the same time, doubt made me feel like I was in an internal battlefield. Emily, if there's something on your mind, you can tell me. You know I'm here for you. Those words were like an invitation. What I was about to do could change everything between us. I needed to be brave. Jake, I saw you at the party talking to that woman. And, well, I recently received a message that made me insecure about us. I just need to know the truth. The atmosphere turned cold. He stopped eating and looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. It was a mix of surprise and discomfort. Emily, I don't know what you're talking about. You were at the hotel, Jake. I saw. And now this. I need you to be honest with me, I said, my voice trembling. He stood up abruptly, looking nervous, running a hand through his hair. I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just a project, something I've been working on, but I can't explain it right now. A project? The words came out of me like an incredulous whisper. A project that requires you to meet another woman at a hotel? It wasn't like that. I promise. I was trying to plan a surprise for you. I just didn't want you to know before the right time, he declared, his voice choked with tension. My heart sank. A surprise? You think that justifies everything? I'm here trying to understand what's going on, and you tell me you were just working on something secret? That doesn't make sense, Jake. He sighed, and his eyes were filled with frustration. You won't understand. I can't give you all the details right now. You just need to trust me. Trust? How can I trust you when I don't know what's going on? I need answers, Jake. I was about to cry, the anguish consuming me. Emily, please let me explain. You know I love you. The sincerity in his voice made me hesitate, even if just for a moment. But doubt lingered like a shadow, and I couldn't simply ignore it. Then tell me who that woman was. What were you doing at the hotel? I wanted him to tell me the truth, and anxiety made me feel like I was on the verge of falling apart. She was just a coworker. It wasn't anything serious. I promise. We were just taking some photos for a project I'm developing. It's all for you, for our exhibition. He was almost pleading, and the frustration in his tone was palpable. You can't expect me to believe that. You know what you did made me insecure. I can't just forget about it. Jake stepped back, his gaze lost in the distance. I don't want you to have doubts about us, Emily. It hurts me. You are everything I want. That phrase echoed within me, but there was an abyss between us now, and I knew we had to cross it. I want to believe you, but it's hard when everything feels so confusing. I don't know what to think. He stepped closer again, taking my hand in his. Please give me a chance. Let me prove I'm being honest. I just wanted to protect you. Protect me from what? The truth. Anger and pain blended together, and I felt like I was losing control. I wanted you not to worry. I didn't want you to feel insecure. But now you make me look like a liar. He was agitated, and I could see the frustration in his eyes. Because you're hiding something from me. If you don't tell me the truth, how can I trust you? I can't keep going like this, Jake. Help me understand. He looked at me, and for a moment, it seemed like he was about to open up. But then something in his gaze changed. I don't want to lose you, Emily. But if you don't trust me, I don't know what to do. Silence fell between us. I wanted to believe he was being honest, but the pain of distrust still weighed heavily on my heart. I just need time to think, I murmured, pulling my hand away from him. Time? You can't just leave me like this. He seemed desperate, but I was so confused that I didn't know what to do. Sorry, Jake. I just need some time alone to figure all this out. The words came out like a whisper, but they were firm. I needed to step back, reconnect with myself before making any decisions. He looked at me, and the expression on his face was a mix of pain and confusion. I don't want this to end like this. Please don't do this. I'm not breaking up with you. I just need a little space. The truth was, I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff, and any misstep could lead me into an abyss of even greater pain. Jake took a deep breath, and the sadness in his eyes was almost unbearable. I'll wait for you, but please don't take too long. And so, that night, I found myself alone, with the echo of his voice still reverberating in my mind. The pain of uncertainty and the need to clarify everything became an internal battle. The love I felt for him still pulsed, but the betrayal, even if unconfirmed, left me feeling lost. The only thing I knew was that the night was far from over, and the answers I sought were still out of reach. I needed time. The decision to distance myself from Jake felt like a fresh breeze on a stuffy day, but at the same time, it carried the weight of a storm approaching. Throughout our relationship, I had always found comfort in his presence, but now, what was once a haven had become a prison. Deep down, I knew I needed to immerse myself in my art, in what truly made me feel alive, far from the uncertainties and insecurities Jake brought. The gallery was quiet that afternoon. The smell of fresh paint still lingered in the air, and the white walls reflected the soft light coming in through the windows. The space was almost empty, except for a few pieces I had already exhibited and one or two visitors passing through quickly. I let my mind wander as I worked on a new painting. The colors blended on my palette, but my heart was still caught in a whirlwind of emotions. "Emily, are you okay?" The voice of Sarah echoed through the space, bringing me back to reality. She entered, with a smile on her face, but her eyes revealed concern. "I'm trying to be okay," I replied, forcing a smile that wasn't quite genuine. "I'm focusing on art. It's what I do best." "And what about Jake?" Sarah asked, leaning against the wall. "Didn't you two have a conversation after that night? You can't just ignore him like that." "I know, but it's complicated. I feel like I need some time, some space." She hesitated before responding, and I could tell she was weighing her words. "Sometimes a little distance can help, but be careful not to lose yourself along the way. What do you really want?" I looked at the colors on the canvas, blending shades of blue and green, trying to create a sense of calm. "I want to find what makes me happy, without the uncertainties that Jake brought. He may have been a great love, but what if that love isn't enough?" Sarah fell silent, and I knew she understood the confusion I was feeling. "If you need anything, or if you change your mind, you know where to find me," she said before saying goodbye. Alone, I returned to focusing on the painting, but my mind continued to wander. Jake's touch was still present in my memories, the way he held me, the warmth of his body against mine. It was a sweet and bitter reminder at the same time. When I finished the painting, I looked at it and saw a woman lost in a sea of colors, trying to find her way back to the surface. It was the perfect representation of what I was feeling. In the days that followed, my routine became a cycle of work and solitude. The gallery was my refuge, but Jake's absence left a void I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just his presence I missed, but the connection we had. His touch, his laughter, the moments of complicity. All of that now felt like a distant echo. It was on one of those lonely afternoons that I met Mark. He arrived at the gallery while I was organizing the new exhibition. He was an artist with an intense gaze and an aura of confidence that immediately attracted me. We talked about art, and to my surprise, he was as passionate about what he did as I was. "You have an incredible talent, Emily," he said, admiring my painting. "The way you capture emotion in colors is truly unique." "Thank you, Mark. It's nice to hear that from someone as talented as you," I replied, feeling a blush on my cheeks. The conversation flowed naturally, and soon we were exchanging ideas about our artistic influences and our views on the world. Mark had a vibrant energy that made me feel alive again, something I hadn't experienced since things started to crumble with Jake. "Have you ever thought about exhibiting outside New York?" Mark asked, leaning in slightly closer. "Art needs to travel, and you have so much to offer the world." I smiled, feeling a spark of hope. "Actually, I've never thought much about it. I've always been so focused on establishing my career here." "Sometimes, stepping out of your comfort zone is what we need," he said, and I could feel the sincerity in his words. "You're an amazing artist, Emily. Don't be afraid to explore new horizons." The conversation continued, and the connection between us grew stronger with every word exchanged. As we talked, I realized that Mark's touch was different, yet no less intense. He didn't physically touch me, but there was an electricity in the air that made me feel a mix of excitement and confusion. I was feeling alive again, but Jake's memory still loomed over me like a shadow. Finally, When the exhibition was about to begin, Mark offered me an invitation. I'll be at the gallery later. How about a drink after the event? We can talk more about art and, who knows, about life. I'd love that, I replied, feeling my heart race. But at the same time, a part of me hesitated. Was it right to open up to someone else while the issues with Jake were still unresolved? The exhibition was a success. Friends, family, and other artists attended. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and compliments, but my mind was elsewhere. I was anxious to see Mark again, but Jake's presence still haunted me. And, as if my thoughts had summoned his spirit, Jake appeared in the gallery. He looked a bit shaken, with messy hair and a lost expression. When our eyes met, a knot formed in my stomach. What was he doing here? Emily, he said, his voice trembling. I needed to see you. What do you want, Jake? I asked, trying to keep my composure. The racing of my heart was a clear sign that, despite everything, I still cared. I want to explain myself. About everything. I know I hurt you, but it wasn't what you thought, he replied, looking into my eyes with an intensity that made me feel vulnerable. Before I could respond, Mark stepped closer, gently placing his hand on my lower back. Sorry, but it seems like you're in an important conversation. Jake looked at Mark, and I felt the tension in the air. Who are you? The question came out as a whisper, but it carried a weight that echoed within me. I'm Mark, Emily's friend. We were talking about art, he replied, maintaining eye contact with Jake. The silent battle between the two men left me in a state of confusion. I was there, torn between the past and the present, between pain and the possibility of new love. Mark's touch was still fresh in my mind, but Jake's gaze reminded me of what we had built together. Jake, we need to talk, I murmured, unsure of how to proceed. It was a crucial moment, and the decision I made could change everything. The cool morning breeze of New York was coming through the window of my studio, bringing with it a faint scent of flowers. I was sitting in front of a blank canvas, the palette of colors beside me, but my mind was far from art. Memories of Jake and everything we had been through together blended with the confusion my heart felt. What did I really want? It was a mix of love and pain, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find the answer. I decided I needed some time for myself, time to understand what was happening. I went to the gallery, where I could lose myself among my works, and perhaps find some clarity. The walls were filled with my creations, each telling a story, but none of them were mine. I needed a fresh start. As I walked among the pieces, I saw a familiar shadow approaching. It was Mark. He had a smile on his face, but there was something in his eyes that made me hesitate. Hey, Emily, it's good to see you here, he said, with a tone that seemed almost too cheerful for the situation. Hi, Mark. I was just thinking, I started, but I didn't know how to finish the sentence. What was I thinking about, after all? About Jake? About Mark? The truth was, I was so confused that I could barely articulate my feelings. He noticed my hesitation and, with a gentle gesture, moved closer. You seem distant. Is something bothering you? I took a deep breath. It's a complicated moment. Jake and I, well, you know. Mark nodded, and there was a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. I know you've been through a lot. But, Emily, I'm here if you need to talk. Those words were a balm, but at the same time, they left me unsettled. I was about to open a door that might be better left closed. Thank you, Mark. I really think I need some time to understand everything. Maybe you should step back a little from all this, he suggested, looking around the gallery. Sometimes, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself a little. You're right, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But the truth was, I was still caught between the love I felt for Jake and the new connection I was starting to feel with Mark. However, The twist came when the subject of Jake came up again. Mark looked at me with a serious, hesitant expression. Emily, I need to tell you something. Something you might not know. I stared at him, my heart racing in my chest. What is it? Jake, he's not just my friend. I've always been in love with you. And he knows it. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. The pieces of the puzzle started to come together in a way I had never imagined. What do you mean by that? I asked, my voice trembling. I mean that, even though he had his insecurities, he never cheated on you. He was dealing with his own feelings about both of us, Mark explained, the sincerity in his gaze leaving me even more confused. How can you be sure of that? I questioned, anger and pain boiling inside me. He was an idiot. He made me feel insecure and full of doubts. I know, he replied with a gentle tone. But I was there, Emily. He was so worried about what you thought of me and what that could mean for both of you. He didn't want to hurt you, and I didn't know how to handle it. Silence settled between us, and I felt torn. Part of me wanted to believe Mark, but another part was so hurt that I didn't know if I could trust anyone anymore. So you were aware of all this? I asked, trying to understand. Yes, he told me. And that's when I realized I didn't want to be a barrier between you two. But I also can't hide what I feel for you. And now, seeing you like this, I just want you to be okay. Those words were like an invitation to a new path, to something that could be different from what I had with Jake. But at the same time, there was this part of me that still longed for Jake's touch, for the connection he and I had. It was an internal battle I didn't know how to win. Mark, I started, but I couldn't find the right words. What could I say? That I was confused? That I was torn between two worlds? At that moment, the gallery door opened and Jake walked in. His features were tense, and his eyes immediately searched mine. He looked like a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Mark and I exchanged quick glances before he stepped back a little, respecting the space between us. Emily, we need to talk, Jake said, his voice heavy with emotion. I could see he was nervous, and that only heightened my anxiety. About what? I asked, trying to stay calm, but the truth was my heart was racing. About what happened. About us, he replied, stepping forward. I have something important to tell you. Mark, sensing the intensity of the situation, decided to withdraw. I'll give you two some space, he said, looking at me with an expression that mixed concern and understanding. When he left, Jake moved closer, and the tension in the air was palpable. I know you're confused and hurt. I never wanted this to happen. I just didn't know how to deal with all this. With you, with Mark, with my own insecurities, he said, sincerity in his eyes making me hesitate. So you didn't cheat on me? I asked, my heart racing, waiting for the answer. No, Emily, I never cheated on you. I was working on a secret project, trying to feel more secure about us. I wanted to surprise you, but I ended up getting lost along the way. I'm not perfect, and I made mistakes, but I love you, he said, his voice choked. My emotions were on edge. I wanted to believe him, but the pain of doubts was still fresh in my memory. Do you really think we can work this out? That I can trust you again? Jake took a step closer to me, his eyes burning with a determination I couldn't ignore. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. For you. For us. Just give me a chance to show you that I can be the man you deserve. I took a deep breath, feeling the struggle between what was familiar and what could be new. Jake's touch still burned on my skin, but Mark was becoming a new possibility, a new chance. I needed to decide between the love that thrilled me and the promise of a different future. I don't know, Jake. I need time. I started, but the truth was I was beginning to realize that maybe there was a path that involved both. A path where I could be myself, free to choose. The gallery, with its artworks, awaited me. There were colors and shapes that reflected what I felt, and it was there that I would need to find my answer.